Welcome, everyone, to episode number 3 of Boost Pickup. I am Vaudable, your host for the show, and today we have some very special guests joining us. That is the one and only the EternalJay and Digitalbacon. Hope you guys are having a great time so far. We have a lot of stuff to cover, and it's great to have you both on the show. How are you feeling this early morning for you guys?
I mean, it's a typical night. I was not going to sleep anyway, so it's all good. It's great. Get to be productive, get to talk about Rocket League, because a lot of stuff has happened this week, as you were alluding to a little bit earlier. And yeah, I just can't wait to talk about it. I just can't wait to get into everything today.
Yeah, it's definitely been a busy one. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode, isn't it, Vod? Like, we've got so much, and of course, it means making it through the night is worth it.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. We have the usual topics that we have here on the show. RL Esports Update. So much stuff to update this time that has been going on. We have the off-season results and tournament info that's been happening with the Dream Hacks and the Beyond the Summits and everything else that's been going on in the scene. We have the community events that have been happening, mainly the Brawl we're going to be talking about. And then the juicy bit of news and conversation that we're going to be diving into is the Triple Trouble roster issues and then disbanding that we saw happen. So let's get into the first topic for today in the RL Esports Update. It is Turbo Pulsa joining NRG. A little bit of old news for those who have been paying attention for a while, but for those who might be sleeping under rocks, pretty awesome to see how Turbo has been able to join this roster. Any thoughts about this cross the pond move from that awesome player?
Well, obviously, the first thing is that this is completely historic in Rocket League history. We've never had a European player go over to North America. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen a North American come over to Europe either. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that particular front, other than obviously in online tournaments and such like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a completely unprecedented move. Not too surprising, though, because NRG are a squad that would absolutely love to get to the top of the world, essentially. They've been on the cusp of it for so long, and bringing in a player like Mr. Three-Time himself probably seems like the most obvious sort of dealing. Like for the past few months especially, we've been hearing behind the scenes rumors and little scramblings over and over again about the idea, is Turbo going to go to NRG? Surely he wouldn't. Surely he would. Maybe he might. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it got confirmed in the end. So I'm not overly surprised about it, to be honest. In my head, it makes like a very sensible. It sounds like a sensible move. And then again, it feels like it's the most sort of obvious thing for NRG to do.
And on the flip side to that as well, when you look at where he's just sort of been released from Dignitas, he's a free agent. He does not cost a transfer fee to essentially break his contract.
Yeah.
If you're looking at NRG, and another point, NRG are always about their image. That is one of the few orgs where their image is what is their branding is the utmost importance. So you're bringing in the free time Turbo Pulsar. That brings a lot of stock, and being the first North American team to bring in an EU, a world champion at that as well, multiple times. It's great for their image, and hopefully it should at least keep them on the same level as what they were before, which when you're looking at NRG, they're always, online, a brilliant team. It's just when it comes to LAN that they fall off. And of course, Turbo
Not
with 3 LANs under his belt, I think they've got in a bit of class there,
It's like they had the final boss that they just couldn't beat, and then they're like, you know what if he joins us instead? Then we'll be able to get the victories. Hopefully it works out for them, and it is good for their image, because their recent image rebranding, maybe not the greatest decision there, but that's enough talking about
not an
NRG.
80s telecom at all.
Yeah, no, they're unapologetic, but I want to apologize to anyone who has to look at that logo too long anyway. But we will go to the next announcement we have is Mist formally joining the Peeps roster, which will be great to see how that team is going to compete in the RLCS season. Any thoughts about this move?
For us, really, when we look at NA stuff, it's always with a little bit of, I want to say, skepticism to a lot of these moves. Because when you look at this one anyway, back in the day, when they got rid of Zafyu, it was why? This was a team that should have really stuck together and keep just, slugging it out for another season. And then if things don't work, then you make the move. So Miz coming in, he's a great player, but it just feels a bit like a side grade, So it's not going to strengthen them this season, it feels, So it'll be just another trying to aim for a 5th, 6th solid spot for RLCS, and then next season might get something out from the Peeps, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, still you got the core of that team who just looked confident during the promotion playoffs. I remember actually sitting there in the Rocket League Central alternate stream, just sort of talking about the way that they were playing, and they still look like a pretty confident squad. I don't necessarily feel like Arsenal particularly made that team. I think it was always sort of like a three-man effort for a lot of the time. I've only seen so many limited VODs of them, so I haven't really got expert opinion on that particular regard. But I do think that they should be all right. Again, as you say, probably not the season that they're expecting to skyrocket, essentially. But I can see them probably going for a 5th, 6th sort of placement and probably being happy with that much at the very least.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for that team, especially because the roster moves they might have had to make would have been with Drippe joining them. And we'll talk a little bit about some move that might potentially happen with him joining Birds and Bees a little bit later based on some of the rosters that are happening for the Astro tournament today. But it's still great to see him staying in the RLCS bubble for them and not having to go back to one of the lower level teams in the rival series that they just promoted from. So good for those guys. Speaking of the rival series, though, maybe not a low level team. This might look actually pretty solid. Is the Plot Twist team welcoming Corrupted G to their roster? I think they had a Rapid before then, and now Mektos, Taroko, and Corrupted G. Great team that's going to be competing for the World Gaming Network Championship that will be going on. Hopefully qualify for DreamHack Montreal. But we see a lot more of this happen in EU with some team members from RLCS going into like dropping down, maybe joining other rival series rosters. Any thoughts about like how that kind of changes up the competition in the rival series level?
Well, when you look at this, it's a little bit of a risky one because naturally, of course, Corrupted G already had a spot, so it's less risky for him compared to Classics, but he had already had that spot alongside Classics, and they've been working together for over a year now. Yeah. So to give up that partnership and go join a new squad, don't get me wrong, it's one where he has got a spot into RS next season, but the whole choice is super risky, because you're essentially breaking up 2/3 of roster and you're joining another one. Torikos and Mektos, they've been working together for ages, and this is a fantastic roster. Plot Twist have always been surprising us, haven't they? So here there should be a lot of veterancy to the team and probably picking up a bit more of like a captain role anyway, which could help the team because we know how important comms are in Rocket League naturally, and having the captain who is near enough just solo common, given near enough directions could work quite well for this side to near enough bump up to that next level. So it's great there. And of course, 5 playing spots now is a bit juicy for us, isn't it?
Yes, definitely very juicy.
The same thing across the pond as well. We'll get into that in a bit more detail later on down the line.
6 for us, yeah.
Yeah, well, again, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail later down the line. But for me, like this whole move just makes the most amount of sense in my opinion. Like Evil Geniuses were on a downward trend throughout the course of their entire RLCS run throughout the last season. Obviously, bringing in Drippe was not the best idea in the world, apparently, because it ranks up there. It's one of those moves where they made it and it was like, okay, this could do something, and then it just didn't do anything at all. Or sort of like how Complexity sort of fell out of the fold when they made their initial roster move. And it's a very similar situation to how this worked out. I'm kind of surprised that they actually they committed to this sort of like so early. I would have expected that Corrupted and Classics would have stuck together for another season, maybe under that Randy Ribbons River Rat sort of roster.
Such a great name.
Oh, it's fantastic. I don't think they would have gone under that particular name, but regardless, those two I would have imagined. I would have thought they would have stuck it out for at least another season, but I'm not too surprised the idea that Corrupted G would take an opportunity to go with Plot Twist. There's a lot of potential in that side, and as you say, potentially like a veteran captain to sort of like add a little bit of extra spice to that roster for the next season. So yeah, Plot Twist the one to watch. I think it makes sense. It's an upgrade. I'm loving it.
Awesome. Great to see how he's joining an up-and-coming roster that's just been tearing up a lot of the competitions that have been happening, especially the Astro tournaments. Those guys, Taroko and Mektos, winning so many of those, mainly the 1s and 2s events because they're a duo squad, but maybe in the future they'll be doing well in the 3v3 events. We do have to talk a little bit about kind of a preview to what we'll be diving into a bit later is Alpha leaving Barcelona. We saw the announcement. We kind of led into spawned from a lot of the chaos that has been happening recently. But we basically kind of know what team he's going to be on, even though it's not announced yet.
Are we allowed to say on stream?
I mean, we can't. We don't know for sure, but we can disclaimer say this is most likely going to happen based on like who is left. Yeah, the rumor basically.
So the key thing about me and Bacon being here is that we are like on the pulse with all of these stuff. So we know. We've known for a while that this is a potential move, and as time has gone on, it's become more and more likely. And as you say, you know, with the news that came out earlier today, this was not surprising at all for Alpha. Like Alpha was always a player that we saw as like potentially like someone who could get poached by a bigger team. Ever since Savage formed up, we was like, wow. Alpha's insane. Like they're not even an organization squad. If any team wanted to come in and pick him up, he's right for the taking. And it was only a matter of time before that sort of plan was put into action. Essentially, I'm just kind of surprised that it was with FC Barcelona rather than them being the Savage organization squad that we saw in the past. But it's happened. And this is the result of it. Again, the rumors were buzzing for a while now. And his new home. They're very confident where he's going right now, I think.
Yeah, and where you look, again, I don't know if we want to say off the top of our heads. We've got to skirt the line a little bit here, guys.
Yeah.
But where he's going, this should be the revitalization to that team, which is worthy of their name. You know, this is a team that when they came in, picked up them, they just won a LAN, and of course, should have then gone on to win many more LANs. But unfortunately, confidence in that camp wasn't very strong. When you look at Barcelona, that has been a very shaky, we're going to say quite an egotistic team as it was. You know, they're always, you got Bluey, you know Bluey as it is. Diva, of course, is always massively hyped up. And then Alpha, you just sort of always felt a bit sorry for him, where he's more of this quiet little French kid and he's just been stuck with these two big giants. Of course, when you've got so much hype around this team, I think this is going to be a lot of weight off his shoulders, especially from what we've been looking at the whole, you know, lifestyle in the camp and the sort of ethos around the bastard. This should be a step back and he can just go sit with his new team and relax a little bit more. Actually, it'll be a little bit more comforting, it feels almost, you know,
especially since he's such a young player, being kind of forced into the atmosphere that he's not really used to, being a part of a professional club where you're literally almost living. He might have been
moved out to Barcelona.
Yeah, they moved out to
Barcelona. I don't think Alpha didn't. He was still in France.
I don't think he did.
But Diva and Bluey did, yes. Which, well, with new roster moves, is their new third man going to be moving out to Barcelona as well? That's the question there.
I mean, potentially, and you know, for that new third, who we most likely know who it is, but we can't say yet because it's not been announced yet.
We'll spoil at the end of the stream. We're waiting for it.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so it'll be great to see what happens with all that, and either of the teams that those players end up on, going to be great for them going forward into the future, especially all the potential they have. Speaking about some people leaving more teams, we saw Zen from OCE leave the Renegades. He had a little twit longer where he was talking about his time there and just saying that things didn't really work out. Maybe had some clashes personality-wise with some of the other players on the roster. Renegades themselves and OCE in general just haven't really played to the same capacity internationally recently, so maybe that might have led to him trying to get onto a different roster, fresh new look, and change things up for him. How have you guys been feeling about the whole like Oceania rosters and teams against like recent competition?
This was a hard one because it all started, of course, with Jake leaving back on the Chiefs, essentially, wasn't it? So he left because in OCE, Rocket League at the moment is not able to be a full-time job. Essentially, then they don't have the money in their salaries in that region. Each region is different in what you earn naturally as a player. So he left and, you know, is working full-time, also doing a little bit of commentary and that with the Gfinity stuff, which is good for him. And now he's even coaching TSM, you know, and then Drippe got poached by EG, and you cannot blame Drippe at all. He has just gone from, like I said, a salary you're not able to live on to a salary you can very comfortably live on over in NA. And essentially
definitely.
From the budget, from the wages we've all been told and all of that. So for him going over there, you can't blame him. But the problem is you've just had the Chiefs captain removed, and before that, they're sort of co-captains anyway. So the two biggest figures of commanding OC Rocket League and sort of developing it, because the Chiefs were always the forefront. Now the Renegades have sort of had to take up that role, and it's sort of slipping away from them. It's never really recovered. I feel sorry for Torsos as well, you know, in that case. Now he's had to pick up the captain role, and it was never his role to sort of like begin with. It's just fallen onto him. So this is going to be a recovery process, and you can definitely see, like, again, after Worlds, that Renegades has been weakened by the loss of Drippe, and this is going to be another season essentially to recover, I reckon, as these teams start. You know, the new talent comes through. We've already seen, I think there's a 13-year-old kid, Hawk, who's coming through. But the problem is he's 13.
He's 13
so
now.
it's 2 years until we can play an RSCS. That is the problem. So, yeah, that's your only thing. Like, you got to wait for this new talent to come through. But sometimes it is like, you know, the whole Scrubs killer story from season 1. You know, everyone knew he was going to be great. He was going to be a world champion. But you've got to wait so many seasons for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential, I think, in the OCE region. So I don't think it's quite game over for Renegades at the moment right now. You know, you mentioned a lot of the upcoming talent and a lot of the upcoming guys. Like, it's OCE especially is like one of those developing regions that you can get a lot of bang for your buck if you're an investor. So I could see the potential for an influx of cash at some point in the future from the business side of things. In terms of the roster move itself, you saw the Twitlonger on screen a moment ago. It kind of describes that Zen was just having some personality clashes with the boys that remain on Renegades. And obviously, if you're having such issues that is insurmountable to work with, then obviously my best thing to do is probably just to leave the team. And, you know, I'm glad that sort of that they were able to recognize that, come to agreement. Zen was able to exit peacefully, and you know, we could and we could just see this whole thing just sort of like blow over. Yes, in the aftermath, it does leave Torsos and Kami with a very awkward situation to try and find a third man. While there's a lot of potential talent, potential's the main word for it there. It's not proven, it's not 100%. And for an organization like Renegades to have a very strong OCE sort of presence and a very strong organization overall, it's not going to be good enough to have a subpar team. So there will be some sort of difficulties, I believe, in that particular regard. And rebuilding the roster, you know, getting that third man in is going to be, I think, sort of the next thing to watch for this particular side. And the question really remains is who can Torsos and Kami pick to join their ranks?
Yeah, we saw Siki, I believe, trying out for one of the DreamHack qualifiers recently for Montreal. Don't know exactly how that went, so maybe he'll be joining the roster there. But great to see more changes happening in OCE as everyone tries to shift and figure out the best way to improve themselves. We see the gauntlet that's been going on, run by a Yummy Cheese Man. He's been putting in a lot of work for that to help give them some consistent competition in the region, because they might not have a lot of weeklies and big events to compete in, which might hamper the progress for them a little bit. We have some other news for me. I'm not really going to talk too much about this one because I do not know the players or the rosters too much. I'm going to throw this completely to you guys. Justice parting ways with Thomas. Tell us what this means for people who do not understand the European region.
So,
Okay.
do you want to take this, Jay? Go on.
I can take this. You can take this if you want to. I don't mind. I don't mind.
You go.
All right, okay. So there was this team called MCon Esports, and they were a completely Dutch team, consisted of Mike Boy, or Thomas in this case, as he's been known by his Twitlonger, and Justice. Justice, if you've been watching the recent rival esports Summer Open, you'll know that he was playing with the 2bin1 BAM side. But essentially, this particular squad had a big old run for a lot of their regional tournaments and during the Renegade Cups. The Renegade Cup monthlies, I should be more specific. And they had a really good run with the MCon side. They were eventually dropped from the MCon organization to form Dutch Bim Bam. And ever since that particular point, like, this team has not quite lived up to the expectations. I don't believe of their particular side. Like, Netherlands is a very sort of represented scene. It's very, very deep, probably more deep than most of the other countries and regions that we have in Rocket League right now. And we expected them to do really big things in the bubble scene, but ever since they left MCon, things just didn't quite work out for them. So it feels like this move certainly speaks echoes to how far things have fallen from grace. Essentially, it mentions in the Twitlonger that start of 2019, everything was start getting worse and worse, eventually leading up to this point now where the team is entirely split up. And remember, those three players have been playing together for a very long time, so issues do tend to crop up. Eventually, it was a little bit too insurmountable. I had hoped we got to see the RLRS run from those guys, because they were a serious dark horse to do it in the European scene. So seeing this kind of like, it is the lay of the land, it is the nature of things, but it is kind of sad that we didn't get to see the full potential of this roster.
Well, that was it as well. Like the MCOM roster was an expected team to make it through RLRS last time. So that for me was really the start of the fall as well. Like when you got to think they were getting compared off against Echo Zulu at that time as two Dutch teams and all of that, from that the Benelux region. And Echo Zulu naturally had the Leipzig run of their lives, didn't they? Making it through 2 top 8 there. And MCOM was always getting compared to them, and then expected to make it through to RORS. They drop their org MCOM, which from my knowledge was near enough like we'll pay your expenses to events and such, but you're not getting a salary. For a lot of these bubble scene teams, that's actually a decent deal, until you prove yourself, and then you can easily leave a no strings attached contract to it. But yeah, they left thinking we'll make it to RORS and then we can actually get an org and a salary. And that didn't happen. And so it's that slippery slope from there, isn't it? Like where you've got no security left in, you're not performing as expected, and it feels almost like you're getting worse because naturally the bubble scene in the EU has just absolutely got so strong over the last half year, essentially. So that's
so strong. It's insane.
Yeah, for them to stay at the same level and everyone's outdoing you, it's just a massively feels bad story. And then the proof of it is essentially, like we said, in the recent runs coming out from Justice on that 2BIM 1BAM side alongside, like, say, Gods and Nolly. And you can see just this new, player essentially in him. It is that case of a rebirth. Sometimes if a team's getting stale, if you're getting frustrated with each other, you do have to move to a new side to just get a fresh start. And when you're in the bubble scene, there is no, I would say, consequence to that because you're not locked into a contract.
Yeah, that's the greatest time to kind of experiment, see which teams you fit best with and can jive and try your best to get into the rival series and then go from there, maybe change the rosters up a bit. And we see that happen a lot more often, I feel, in the European region compared to NA, just because we all talk about the EU depth that we see happen so many times with all the great rosters that are competing in all the different leagues that happen around there. Speaking of some rosters that we have seen, or maybe more organizations we've seen before, Exalti return with a new roster that has just been announced today, actually, that they came out with. Carioni, D7, I'm probably butchering the name, and Eversax. So why don't you tell us a little bit about these players and the organization that we've seen beforehand?
So on this one, D7, of course, used to play for Exalti way back in the day, so there's the connection there. But essentially, Exalti have always been around Rocket League. This is like the French community love Rocket League. I was nearly close to swearing there. It's that sort of level of they are the top pinnacle of basically Rocket League in the world, you could argue. Of course, in America, you've got a larger region, so it works. But just by, like Capita, for example, France is nuts. And the number of players they can get there. Like, so number many. Of bubble scene teams, just French players alone is ridiculous. So this is a solid team come together. Carioni and Eversax have been around ages. Eversax is actually the one that I would say to watch out for that. And then they've got this old guard, D7 from the old Epsilon roster and such, taking this sort of new kids, essentially, these up-and-coming players, and bring them onto a side that wants performance. Exalti have massive expectations. They used to run near enough an A team and a B team, like an academy team in other esports sort of style. It'd always be Exalti and then say an Exalti Blue, or even maybe a third team with like Exalti Purple. From their team colors, of course, but this is a side that just wants to try and bring through new talent, and then as a business maybe get something from that, but largely it's all about just harboring new talent come through and then getting their brand, of course, at esports tournaments from the grass scene up.
Yeah, and Exalti themselves have such a good track record in producing good French players. Like Régul was part of their organization in the past. Extra as well, who played recently at DreamHack Valencia. Fakeout and D7, who are part of the Epsilon lineup that you mentioned earlier as well. It is quite nice to see D7 consistently having a home to go to, and obviously like finding some French-speaking players that you can build around. Ramsel obviously being their main coach, and I think it's part of the organization itself. I'm not sure about that, but I digress. As for this roster, I think they could do well in the bubble scene, but I think that's about as far as they'll go with Bacon.
I don't think they'll reach RORS when you look at the caliber here. And again, that's just because of how strong EU is. However, the only caveat to that, Jay, is their coach, which they have got completely on board, Razmofor, who you might know from casting for the Rocket Baguettes, of course. So this is a lad. Yeah, GC player through and through, but an older player that can analyze sort of games, and he'll be probably given a lot of support. So if you were to get this unexpected team come through, it would be Exalti essentially later on, just because they do have all the foundations set in place to turn a team which you wouldn't expect great expectations from to actually start doing some crazy stuff if they go unchecked by other teams, of course.
Makes a lot of sense. Don't know exactly how well they're going to perform until we get to the actual qualifiers themselves, because those are always a toss-up. We see so many teams that were like, well, maybe they'll qualify, and then they just completely don't. Oh, Sway Esports in North America. You have to talk about them every time, but,
Yeah, it sort of just comes down to the bracket largely with the qualifiers, ain't it? Because, of course, naturally, your rotations, your play style can work against some teams, but not against others. So on the day, it can have a massively large effect just based on bracket and who you have to face.
Yeah, and that's what we see happen so many times with these tournaments. But that's a whole nother story for another time with, like, we need more teams and more
inroads. That's
play. We need more inroads. We need more of a lot of stuff. But what is great to see as well is more organizations joining Rocket League. We see Mindfreak entering in the Rocket League Oceania scene as they pick up some players that aren't actually, I don't believe they qualified this past season for the league play for OCE, but they were a team that was getting really close, and now they're trying to kind of reform and get to there. How important is it to see more organizations join the scene, especially in OCE?
Well, for this one, it's essentially Mindfreak have been around for ages. They've had teams before in Rocket League, so it's more getting these solid, stable ores come back in. The ones you don't want to see make it through and like pick up an RLCS team, for example, over in the Gfinity side of things, are these new teams that are just formed up and essentially they're brand new. This is their first esport getting in, and you look at say their Twitter and they've got 500 followers. That's like a this is a little
like a certain team that we all probably know about, but
but essentially, Mindfreak coming in, the OC region where it is so, I want to say, tightly packed. You know, there is essentially only, I would argue, of course, you got the top 3 teams, and then from that you've got another 8 that could maybe up to 10 that could make the run into the RLCS spots. So where you don't have a massive choice, it's actually quite easy for these bigger orgs to pick out and try and like develop a team for RLCS. And we're at the perfect time now, 2 months out essentially from them having to do all the play-ins and get through. So Mindfreak coming in, welcome back.
Yeah, and obviously they picked up they picked up a pretty respectable roster as well. They've got the farm essentially, who essentially were a mixed team prior to this, but they've had some good performances in the Gauntlet, consistently placing top 4 in the Glove. They also played in a Nordic tournament as well, which I'm not 100% sure of the details about that, but they have shown quite a lot of great results across OCE. So while I might not be particularly an expert on this particular sort of squad, and of course the region as a whole, it does seem like just based off results. It's just been based off results alone. Like these guys, they might be onto something with this squad.
Awesome. It's just great to see them come back, pick up a squad that might have a good shot at it. If they don't, they might pick up a different team. It's just great to see more involvement in that capacity, especially for the OC region, as they're trying to, I feel like, reform and become stronger and hopefully challenge a lot more the international scene as a whole. Speaking of more international teams that we'll be seeing at DreamHack Montreal, we do have 1NE Esports. They are going to be sending over a roster to DreamHack Montreal. The first time that we are getting an Asian team at a DreamHack event or at an international Rocket League event. Why don't you guys tell us? I might be wrong looking at that reaction from Jay, but how would you tell us about this team?
Thank God. Thank God. I have been waiting for this moment for a very long time.
You've been waiting, Jay. It's even longer for me. I've been involved with the Asian scene straight from near enough the get-go of APL and all of that. And so this has been one for ages where back in those days anyway, at the start, you had gone, okay, so the top teams could actually play on, I would argue, a RLRS level in EU and NA, so it was always that case. We knew for ages, if these guys were just allowed in a different region, they could do stuff. And it was just hampered essentially by there not being a road to RLCS or even sponsored tournaments going on over in Asia. That's largely because of the whole Tencent stuff, which I don't think you've gotten the thing here, but now that
I don't have it here, but I was going to say, say that's what we could probably talk about during the section. It is now approved in China. They are going to go forward with the game itself and marketing and all that.
This weekend just got, me and Jay were doing the stuff for the China Open, which was essentially like a $660 tournament, of course, in their local currency out there. And it was on the front page of essentially China's own Twitch, Douyu.
That's awesome.
Jay, can you remember the figures of the viewers watching on that?
It was something like 204,000 people watching a $600. Yeah, I know, right? it's insane. There is genuine interest for Chinese Rocket League right now. So there's a massive market that's about to open up for Rocket League, and it could be completely massive for the game overall. And obviously having these guys, who I'd argue are probably some of the best players in Asia, representing the Asian scene as a whole on the international stage, like there's potential for this squad. There was serious potential for these guys to go out swinging. We talk a lot about how South America has the most offensive, aggressive play style.
Oh yeah, we haven't seen Asia yet, though.
No. From watching Asia, I can say that it contrasts all of the EU consistency and the Americas in general sort of aggression with sheer accuracy. Realize is a player that's going to be playing on this particular side. And he's been popping up on the front page of the subreddit so many times for how many insane shots, backboard plays, and just accuracy that he has. And he's probably one of many, many Asian players who can replicate that on an international scale. I'm really excited to see where this team goes. I'm so hyped.
And that was always it. It was always... He's the one I felt sorry for the most, realised. We will bring him up because the entire community knows him, of course, like we said, from him being on the front page of Reddit near enough. Once a week, he's a staple near enough. And it was always that case of, if that lad was in another region, he would be a squishing muffins or something, you know? It's that sort of level of quality that he can bring, and he's just hampered because there is no massive competition out there. I think their large tournaments are like, you're looking $5,000, and that is your major essentially for the region, which it speaks words to how it's all treated out there. But now with Tencent, taking it, of course, they own a large part of Epic Games with their buyout of Psyonix, essally the acquisition there.
Helps a lot.
Hopefully, it's all coming together, yo. It's finally all those spider webs. There we go. We're branching out.
Yeah, going to be great to see that region. Hopefully, maybe next season, maybe next year, that they'll be able to join because of how we have that region as a part of Rocket League as a whole now, because of the announcement that was recently released. I think it's like just a few days ago that we saw that happen.
Yep.
Obviously, the guys there were talking a bit more about it before. I think the Esports Observer was one of the ones that talked about it a bit later. But we do have to talk about some other results and tournaments that have been going on throughout the scene. We had all the craziness of the first section, but now we're going into the off-season specials, and we're starting with the ESL Masters Hispania Season 6 League play that's been happening across the pond. We didn't have anything going on this week, probably because of some of the roster changes that we saw. And here's one thing that we'll be excited to see for tomorrow, and I'm sure you guys will talk about on your show, is the lineup that we'll see from Barcelona. And we'll hopefully see their new roster announcement there, or maybe we'll see just the regular team just without Alpha for that.
Well, the thing is, Barca have to play with Bimetos in that tournament, because essentially the rules are one Spanish player. But do they use this to bring in their new third, or do they play it safe alongside Blue and Devo, who Bimetos has been playing with all season long? They're going up against Crazy Crew. Now, Crazy Crew, it's a weird case scenario. And when you look at Barca, they should be winning this hands down. They took a loss in week one. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're going to go over the results, but they took a loss.
Oh, yeah. It was insane.
Pushing Gaming. Yeah, that's, don't get me wrong, Pushing Gaming have shown their caliber. Jay can back that up as well within the EU. But it's that case of, this is an RLCS team. This is, like, Bimetos at any rate is an RLRS player if we don't count them as a sub, because normally subs are just brought in because they're bubble players.
Yeah.
I
do want to interrupt you real quick, though. The week 2 matches will actually be happening on August 30th. Apparently, they've been postponed. So the week 3 matches are the ones that are going to be happening this week. So they aren't going to be facing off Crazy Crew. They do have a little bit of a break before they have to face those guys. and they're facing off against the eighth team currently in the region.
Okay, that side they can bring a new man in.
Yeah. That's how I'm thinking. It's like for that, they probably are going to feel a bit more comfortable doing that. They don't really have to worry too much, especially since they're also 0-2, but they've only played one game as well. So we'll see what happens for that one.
It's a bit of a weird one, this tournament, actually, because you may have noticed, if you take a look at the Wikipedia page, that all of the group stage, or rather league play matches, they're all best of threes.
Yes.
Which is a questionable format. Just a little bit.
It's the only thing we can question about it, though. That is it. And it's because it's all time. Constraints.
Well, the thing is that like it harkens back to an issue that me and Bacon had about the Renegade Cup finals.
Oh gosh,
which was something we did not like at all. Is the fact that when you have a best of three, you don't allow any mitigating circumstances to come through. You do not allow any consistency. Essentially, it's like playing a single map in Counter-Strike. You know, and you don't get a full sort of measure of a team's skill. You know, you don't get the opportunity to outread your opponents in the case of a best of three, and as a result, it's a very unpredictable sort of result to make. So you talk about the Push Gaming side, you know, taking an upset above FC Barcelona. You got to remember it was a 2-0. You know, in another circumstance, another world, we probably could have seen FC Barcelona reverse sweep. You know, but we'll never get to know about that because
the only thing
that opportunity is taken away by this particular result. By this format, excuse me.
Yeah, the only thing I can say as a pro to the format, though, is that they run like this is their second season of doing it. They started it's now on season 6 because, of course, it's across different games.
Yeah, because they've done so many different games.
Yeah,
it's confusing for the naming.
The first season for them, season 5, started at the back end of April. And now we're on the second. That's a very quick turnaround time. There was a 1 month, not even that, off season, and it was essentially just to fit in the other tournaments. And so when I look at it now, when there's 500 euros on the line for league play, and then the big grand finals, if you make top 4, yes, there's a large 5,000 dollar, essentially equivalent 4,500 euros there. So it's more about just filtering through the 4 best teams and then put them to the large sort of like best of 5 stage with best of 7 finals, and then you go into the Dream Cup and then qualify for like DreamHack Valencia for that case. But here it's essentially they're just trying to churn through these seasons as quick as they can. At this rate, they could fit in 4 a year, which is ludicrous. And I quite like that as, if you're only going to do very short games and very short seasons, at least do a lot of them, you know?
Yeah, it's great to see how ESL, even on the other side of the equator, that we see the ESL Brazil Premier League, finally finished up there. They were actually a lot more accelerated than what we saw happen for the Hispania one. They just had, I think it was only like 2 or 3 weeks that they had for play, but the playoffs happened, and then the next day we saw the results of that for the playoffs. Quick 3-0s across the board. Loki have not looked good recently at all. It seems that Lotus is the new top team that's going to be replacing Loki, as we see with the results from the actual final matchup there. It was just a single best of 7, and we saw Erodium coming out on top by 1 game, winning by 1 goal too. Game best of 7, go all the way to game 7 between top teams in South America. You know, there's no better pairing than that.
Yeah, at the moment is just those 2 teams, Erodium and Lotus. Like you said, Loki have dropped off. That's because of the roster shuffle, essentially, in the off-season. You can't deny it. The same can be argued for Ints as well. Like, Ints we saw at LAN looked great, and now like they're playing near enough the same squad, and it's what has happened. It is just because those 2 other, Erodium and Lotus, the 2 non-sponsored orgs, teams, essentially, are the crazy ones at the moment. And it's just, if there's anyone looking at that South American team, you know, as an org, go pick them up. They could do good stuff for your brand. And of course, they now have a route for 2 teams into RLCS. So that's big bonus.
Yeah, it's great to see that too. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm trying to speed through these a little bit more so we can get into the juicy business of the Triple Trouble stuff that's been going on. But it is great to see all that happening. I'm going to quickly go into the Rocket League WGN North American Championship qualifiers. We saw the closed event for that happen, and the closed qualifier. We saw 3 more teams that'll be joining the others at the actual event that'll be happening at the Canadian Fan Expo, which will be pretty soon. But it is Upper 90, Team Frontline, and RBG Esports. And the teams that they'll be joining there, Noble Esports, Linked Up, Plot Twist, Bull Send, and then some other team that qualifies from the live event there. Great to see more stuff like that happen. Any thoughts about how they are running? They used to run just I think it's just a Canadian qualifier. Now they have a whole North American thing and leading into qualifying for DreamHack Montreal. Do you want to see more of that? Or is it like you want to see it more broadcasted because we haven't seen any of it so far?
That'd be nice. That'd be really nice because like we got nothing to pull from for analysis if we don't have any sort of matches to watch. You know, like, I don't even think there's any demos available to the public eye, which is very frustrating for us as analysts. You know, we'd love to know how Avidity beat Gold Patrol, for example. We'd love to know about this, but we don't have the information available to us. We don't even have the scores available to us according to Wikipedia. So it's kind of frustrating as well, actually, because it goes into another issue I have with Rocket League tournament organizers as a whole. Like, it feels like in some cases they don't put their priorities right. You know, I feel like that in the case of Psyonix, they put a bit too much emphasis on broadcast, but everyone else doesn't put enough emphasis on broadcast and archival as well. That's another thing as well. I hate tournaments don't post their VODs to YouTube or anything like that. So
they don't save them on Twitch either.
Or that too. Yeah, no, there's some amazing matches I remember I've casted that have just been lost to the sands of time because certain tournament organizers haven't actually posted them to YouTube or as you say, save them on Twitch. You know, there's, you know, I've got backups for my own personal portfolio, but these are not publicly available to watch. And obviously, I don't have the permissions to post them because they're not my VODs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see that happen sometimes, but you know, we gotta just hope for more tournaments, and then you know maybe we just all gotta approach them. It's like, you know what, you don't need to even give us too much, just the rights to broadcast these events, because it's not hard to do that for some of these close qualifiers. They might take a long time because apparently it took all day for all the close qualifiers for the World Gaming Network's tournament. But we do have to talk about some other events that have been going on and some qualifiers that finished, and now the open signups are live for DreamHack Montreal. Great to see that people can actually go out for that if they weren't able to qualify for the event and have the funds to fly themselves out. We'll see all the pro teams most likely going there that are signed by organizations. And then we also have the talent that has been announced for that too. Some great guys working there. Basically just a copy and paste from DreamHack Valencia. What do you guys think about seeing even more EU guys getting opportunities? It is just Johnny Boy and Shogun, to be fair, but it's great to see them have another shot at it.
Oh yeah, I love Canadian visas. They're amazing.
that is the American visa is so hard to get for a European that it just shows light of day. There's no problem in the copy paste. This is what should be their lineup essentially for the DreamHack stuff. It's a nice sort of contrast of talent you don't get to see quite often than your familiar RLCS talent. So really happy with this one, naturally, aren't we, Jay? And like you said, yeah, it's Johnny and Shogun, but they are the pinnacle of European casting. So you're dumb if you got a complaint with that. You know,
yeah,
we'd like to get more casters on, but you can only have so many slots, of course.
Yeah, it's a huge event, and it's great to see the best kind of represent the Rocket League scene on the DreamHack stage. And it's the last one that we'll be seeing. Hopefully we'll see another DreamHack Pro Circuit next year if they think it does well enough for them. I hope it is, because it's great to see all that and all the amazing results. Speaking of some awesome teams that we'll be seeing most likely and rosters at DreamHack Montreal. We're getting preview from the teams that have been announced for the Rocket League Summit. That'll be happening pretty soon. Obviously, one of those teams not going to be there. We'll probably talk and speculate about who might be replacing them. That's Triple Trouble, but, you know.
we've been teasing that whole bit, like, building up to that, like, climax of the show, essentially. But, yeah, other than Triple Trouble, this is basically completely accurate. I actually love this lineup of teams, actually. A nice contrast of Europe and North America. You've got some LAN winners in here. You've got some LAN runners up. You've got some teams with a lot of potential, especially, like, you know, the Bricks, for example, they really excite me after what they performed and what they've shown with the likes of a lot joining their fold. Like, I'm also glad to see as well that Beyond the Summit have also invited non-organization teams as well, because, you know, there's an argument to state that the Bricks and before that, Triple Trouble, would have been able to make dark horse runs, especially in the case of the Bricks, who would have seriously been able to, have a chance to do some serious damage in this particular tournament. So, yeah, absolutely loving this, and good on you being on the summit. I wish more organizations, more tournament organizers would try and support some of those, lesser fortunate teams, I guess you could say, in terms of the business side of Rocket League.
I mean, yeah, that's great. But this, to me, just like at the time when they would have invited teams, that was just the top 4 teams from both regions. It's as simple as that, Jay, when you look at it. Of course, a lot moving on to the Bricks was strong there. And, well, it's even me. I never believed in dude, and now I do, which is the sign of proof there. Triple Trouble, yes, is super unfortunate, but this is all down to, of course, orgs coming in, and players need salaries and security. So, unfortunately, that one's frazzled apart. And whatever team picks them up next, it'll be interesting to see, because of course there is confirmation. It was seen in tweet longer that they are going to be bringing a different team from EU to replace them. Yeah,
we'll probably speculate a little bit, and we can kind of know which teams they'll be picking up from for EU that'll be joining them there. But let's talk about some other NA news that's been happening. Not as important because it is a 2v2, but it is a big event that happens about every single month.
2v2 matters. No matter what anyone.
No, it does matter. But the teams that are playing in the 3v3 matters a little bit more. The results that we have from last week, while the show was going on, it was Afterthought that took the victory there. Good to see First Killer and Sathu, a part of that roster, taking the victory there. First Killer still not old enough to join a team for either the Rival Series or RLCS. Maybe next year we'll see him, hopefully, at some point, but he still has a little bit to wait there. And then the rosters we do have for Team Beyond's Astronauts tournament that is happening. I think it might actually be almost over tonight, but it's great to see that there's all these teams to go through and kind of break down. Any of them kind of sparking your interest or that you've noticed that is different from before? I know one that I can probably mention a little bit is Birds and the Bees. We see Drippe there. That's great to see, because everyone's been wondering, okay, where is he going at this point? Because there's been no news about that at all.
Yeah, because EG, of course, said they were committed to him, and everyone was just there like, oh, then Drippe is just going to move to another RLCS team, probably one of the teams that aren't signed, and they're just the new EG roster. We saw that, before we say Rogue, FlyQuest, all that sort of deal, and then Peeps picked up Miss from Birds and the Bee. We're like, oh, okay, that's weird. Ghost Gaming picks up a different third. Okay, so Driffe's not going to go there and EG just pick up the Ghost side. That literally leaves one team remaining. And it seems to me like Driffe's just forced into this role. And naturally, like I said, where it brings a salary and all of that with him, Hoxer and Roldis would be dumb not to essentially accept him, because you guys don't realize that, if you're getting paid to play, it means you don't have to, you can focus your entirety. Your 9-to-5 job is Rocket League. It's not do your 9-to-5 job to make a living and then spend 6 o'clock in the evening to 11 o'clock playing Rocket League just to try and keep up, and you're still doing half the hours of anyone else. Of course you fall behind at that rate,
Yeah.
Simple as.
I've got nothing else to add.
We saw it happen with Farah too, where he finally went full time, so he's able to fully dedicate, and that team's gonna be deadly. Hopefully, if everything works out with him going full time with that.
That was of other rosters, from a part-time job though, so that's a little different, but still
is a little different. He had some support already and more support from the part-time stuff, but now it's all in on Rocket League, which is great to see. We saw Atomic trying out, maybe actually just going to join the team for Ghost. We don't really know exactly how that's going to fare. We saw Momentum there, Dapper, Miho, and Pirates. They didn't do too well. They didn't make it too far, but there's a lot of great competition. And then we finally, I think the finals is actually going on right now. Get to see NRG versus Ghost. So we'll see how Atomic does against the new NRG roster, basically, how that matchup's going to go.
Is that with Turbo playing from EU?
Yes, Turbo is playing.
No, but I'm saying, is he out in NA at the moment or EU? Because I can't bring up the stream and just quickly
I'd have to check
the
VODs to see his ping, yeah. I mean, either way, he's been tearing it up with them. They destroyed the Peeps 4-0 and 5-1 or something
you
in
gotta
their
think,
last
because
game.
the problem largely with the old Dignitas roster there's a lot of frustration in the team breaking down. Turbo is just able to easily waltz in there, and it's a good atmosphere already. So there's no reason for it to be a blunder. So yeah, this ain't unexpected. He's nuts. You saw how he did with the River Rats, just to get picked up for there. So all signs are good for NRG.
Yeah, it's looking great for them, and obviously with such a strong showing, there aren't all the RLCS teams they have to face off against. They really have only had to play one so far. Well, one was the Peeps, and then they have to play Ghost, so maybe two, but we'll see more results from them as we get to the actual Rocket League Summit, which will be great for all that information that'll be going on. But now we have our next segment, the final one. I know you've been all waiting before the Triple Trouble stuff that we'll be breaking down. We do have the community contributions, grassroots continuing to grow and help foster the community and try and get players as much experience as possible. We do have the Rising Stars Rocket League Season 1 structure that was announced. A lot of organizations helping to bring that to fruition. Rocket Baguette being the main one. As you can see, all the regions they're helping to represent and kind of bring into their own Rising Star series, and all of it funneling into a Superstar series. Any thoughts on maybe not even the format, just the concept of this whole tournament, regional ones leading into kind of a Champions League sort of event?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
the Rising Star's been fantastic so far, hasn't it, Jay? And so for them to expand, of course, we already saw Gold Dust come out before, and last season is great. The Italian guys have been working it, near enough slugging alone, and the same for the Portuguese. And so for everyone to sort of combine and do essentially a Champions League, if you're in football, soccer for you guys, and bring it all together is just what is needed for what is ideally the scene below the bubble scene, just emerging talent that's just about go on to be able to do nuts stuff. And at the moment with Rocket League, of course, that also includes the bubble scene near enough being the bar there. So don't expect any RLRS qualified teams, any org teams there, but still, this is crazy because the number of players you see come through here and then get picked up by bigger teams down the road or develop anyway is great.
I mean, that's what's so important about it, too. Is sorry to interrupt you, Jay. It's just great to see that, too. And I believe they said they aren't allowing Rival Series or RLCS team players on any of the teams. So that kind of helps make it that breeding ground for talent.
Yeah, and this is something that the bubble scene has needed for a long time. We don't have an official structure for anyone that's below the RLRS. There's a common sort of trend in EU, and I think this probably applies to America as well. But there's a common sort of thread in EU is that if you're not in the RLCS or the RLRS, then you're not nothing essentially in the scene as a whole. If you're in the bubble scene, you're not worth jack. There needs to be some sort of system in place for anyone to try and to essentially be a proving ground for the RLRS. For all intents and purposes, the qualifier system is old. I'd love to see something like this implement into a ladder to move up to the RLRS. Obviously, that has to be with Psyonix's support and Psyonix's involvement, but as a next step in the way to developing the bubble scene, this is absolutely fantastic. We've been starved of bubble action for a long time, and ever since the Renegade Cup ended off, we've seen virtually no bubble tournaments outside of the smaller regional ones, that have been run by various different TOs over the course of Europe, especially. And obviously, you guys in America have the Beyond tournaments and all the other tournaments that you guys run.
Yeah. Rival doing stuff. Those are really the only two that have been really happening. Nothing consistent where it's week to week to week where people can just play in. I mean, we have the doubles tournaments with minor league esports. They've been doing great stuff, but it's still not the same as a threes circuit for people to compete in consistently, and all the people that are in the bubble scene to take part in as well.
And the way you got to look at this, guys, is essentially this is the start of a talking point to get Psyonix on board with it, because their idea of getting the bubble scene involved was the Renegade Cups, of course, and that didn't work out the greatest, and of course only lasts for a very short period of time. You're doing one sort of run of it a year, and it lasts 4 months and then a weekend. That will get shortened down if they repeat again, because a month was way too long for the tournament. We all know as casters it didn't work workout. It's a great idea, don't get me wrong. But it's that in practice, it just did not work. So for this sort of thing to work alongside, and like Jay said, this is your path up to RORS. This is the talking point. And the big thing for me is that the community had to come out to it. And by community, I mean near enough Rocket Baguette champion this. And that's largely because those lads have done great on the network in front and got money in, and they can fund it, support it themselves. Not a lot of organizers in Rocket League can actually do that, and the ones that can, say your the Beyond stuff and that with the Asheneers, they're selling their own product, so they've got no interest to step into this realm, do they? And
pretty much,
rightfully so. It's not for them to step into. So for the Baguettes to come forward and just basically go, right, this is what's needed, we're actually going to put our money on the line and do it ourselves, pat on the back to them. They should be praised for this through and through.
Yeah, great to see them participate in that and bring it from a concept that they had before to just a vision that's going to hopefully work out well. We'll see what happens with the logistics of that. They also still have to announce the organizers that are going to be running the Ireland and the UK section of it, and we'll see what happens with that. But speaking of some European competition, a lot of bubble teams and some not bubble teams that were competing in this, we did have the awesome Rival Esports Summer Open, the European portion of it this past weekend. I know you guys were involved in that. We had the bracket here, and the teams that were able to take the victory was the Bricks, doing quite well for themselves. But any thoughts about any of the other rosters that we saw there?
Oh, there's one in particular. There is one in particular you may have noticed on the top part of that bracket, the Bim Bam Gamers.
Yes.
Who, for those of you who are not aware, is the guy that we mentioned earlier, who was part of Dutch Bim Bam, also part of the MCon side that just split away with Justice. God Smiller, former RLRS player, part of the Placebo roster, and later on to be Nordavind. And Noli, who's another European bubble player. And these guys formed up essentially only for this tournament, as far as I'm aware. And they managed to go all the way to the finals. Not only did they do that, they beat the Loche on the way in a best of 7 and beat Complexity on the way in a best of 5. Now, I don't need to explain to you how ridiculous that feat is.
Yes.
Because it's insane. It's
They're
absolutely
the lowest
insane.
seeded in that bracket, too. No one expected this to happen.
Well, the thing is, when you look at Nolly is the up-and-coming player to watch out from, largely out of all this, all the teams coming through essentially from this. He's the up-and-coming player to watch. He is dangerous. But Godsmiller, a lot of people would have looked at his recent performance and probably said, that whole harsh, he's washed. And this is the best, I would say, he's looked in the last 2 years in this team. That's great. And though at the same time, we were talking about the whole MCon debacle, the whole Dutch Bim Bam, and that just fallen off. So them to come back in this and just form up as a whole team together, we're excited for this. This is why we say EU has so much depth, is because you can just randomly have 3 players turn up and then they take down these established RLCS teams.
Not Rival Series, RLCS teams.
Yes, both of them technically now, Don't get me wrong, we will go with the caveat of Veloce were playing with Ignite, they were trying them out. So, of course, there'd be little things there. And Veloce were looking better as things went on for them, naturally, but it just did not work out in the end. And Complexity, no excuses. We never got to see that game, unfortunately, because no one would ever stream that game. You've got first seed going up against 8th seed. So if you're why would you go for the 2 closest seed games?
They voted for who they wanted to see on the stream too, and no one really voted for that. I'd like to see the percentage of who actually voted for that team to be streamed.
Well, the thing is,
it's insane. This was going to be a big focus of the show until all the Triple Trouble stuff happened, and then all that happens. Rival Esports Summer Open, love you guys over there, but it's a little bit more important to talk about what's going on in the scene with that kind of stuff. But great to see what's been happening with that. Make sure if you guys are wanting to sign up for the North American version, it is $1,500 on the line, 2 days of competition, the open bracket, and then the closed bracket that will be happening on Sunday this weekend. Going to be seeing some great teams there. I'll be casting that alongside some other awesome people as well. But that's enough about the Rival Esports Open. We do have to talk about the Brawl that happened this past week. It's been great to see all the competition, all the smack talk, and the old VVV tradition that's been revived by Lawler on his stream over there. We have the rosters that we saw for the past week. It was the EU version of it. Mystic, Flame, Cassio, Alpha, Alot, Tadpole, Ronicky, and Blurry were the captains for that one. They were some interesting rosters. Any ones that kind of stick out to you guys for the teams that they were able to pick up?
A lot Magnus and Greasy, straight up. The old complexity roster was just there like, that's cheating. This is not what the rule's about. This should be non-known teams.
I absolutely love this tournament. Like, it's just fantastic. I just can't get enough of the shenanigans that go down. Like, you know, or that you don't even need to watch the tournament as a whole. Just by going to the subreddit and just flicking through all the clips.
Yeah.
Like, they're incredible. Like, you know, it is a show match in the most like literal sense of the word. It's there for a show. It's there to give you a laugh. It's there to have some fun. The players are having fun with it as well. Like, it's probably one of the most fun tournaments you can watch, essentially. Like, you know, and while it is a bit of a departure from the regular traditional sort of suited and booted level of competition that we see throughout most other tournaments, it is cool to see Lawler, you know, getting up and organizing these things for the sake of the community. You know, I know that he hasn't got a lot going on in terms of the commentary style and stuff. So the fact that he's coming out and creating stuff for him, creating stuff for everybody else, it's just really beautiful, and it's unique as well. And I love that. I absolutely love that about this tournament. It's beautiful.
I mean, that's what makes it such a great thing too, is because of how unique it is and how it brings all these different personalities together. It's not really like Beyond the Summit, because we see like solid teams for that. It's kind of like how the old Gold Rush was, where there'd be just random teams facing off against other ones, and you'd see how they would all interact and which of your favorite teams that you might have been theorizing in your head would work together. We saw Team Alpha 54 obviously winning that one. Alpha, Fairy Peak, and Flakes, like,
easy.
It's pretty
Everyone
easy
knew
to see
throughout
what
the
happens
day,
there.
like, yeah, that's the winning roster. Like, there's no question about. Maybe the other one could be Cassio's team, Cassio, K-Dop, and Tigre. But you just look at all of them, you're just like, that is the strongest team out of them all, and easily strong. Like, that's ridiculous as a team goes. That's almost like a dream team, you know, coming up, where you're like, okay, if we were to jumble up the RLCS teams, what could be the next world-winning team? And it would be probably Alpha and Fairy sticking together. And if it was just purely, oh, you can't have any of the players, you know, from the same team being together, then yeah, you'd probably throw Flakes in, because he is. We've seen him develop, and he is going to be the next like K-Dop, as long as he can get over that little bit of you know, personality
Growing
issues that he's having with
and all
teams.
that.
Yeah, but that's one of those things you mature with time, don't you? Because he's still a young lad.
He's got so much ahead of him, and it's going to be great to see how he performs in future seasons of Rocket League Championship Series. But we do also have to go over our last little bit of community news. It is the teams that just got announced today. Not really the teams, but the captains and players that will be participating in the third week of Brawl. It will be North American captains and rosters. We see the returning champs, Memory Mist and Reddles, and then we have some interesting members there. Just to point out some, we do see Violent Panda coming across the pond, and he's going to be competing in this too. Drip A is going to be cool to see as a captain, see how he interacts with a lot of these players too. Wonder isn't actually going to be in this one. He'll be replaced by Chrome because it's his birthday this weekend. So happy early birthday to Wonder there, but some great players, and it's good to see how they kind of rotate it around every time for who's competing in it.
Essentially, that is part of it, and I like the whole idea of the winning team previously gets to stay on, and they've got to stick together for that, just to see and like mix up how does that affect it. Because, like I said, where it's so unique, like I like that they're changing captains as well.
Yeah,
like for me, this is cool. Get everyone a little chance at it. It almost feels like you're back in school, you know, and you're playing football out on the field, and it's like everyone's picking their teams and sort of doing that way of just going along and pick out the next player available.
Yeah,
it's very nostalgic in a lot of sense.
It's great to see all that nostalgia and just how we see all these players. They've been around the scene for such a long time. Now we get to see all these different rosters that we would never see by how the standards of Rocket League is right now in the pro scene, but now we get to see all that great stuff. Good to see. Great work by the guys there. But we do have to talk about some other news that we've been putting off for far too long. It is the final segment of the show. Thank you for anyone who is still awake, and thank you to those watching the VOD. Most likely it's going to be happening for most people, especially people that aren't champions like we have Digitalbacon and EternalJay here. Triple Trouble. They had some trouble, and now it is all over for them as a roster. They forfeit their spots. We see the tweet here where they announced that they are no longer going to be keeping up with Cassio being a part of the roster. Mm-hmm. Before we get into these interview questions that we were actually able to get from and ask their former or current their manager that they had for quite some time,
the Triple Trouble manager. We'll go
the Triple Trouble manager. That's probably a better way to mention it. Dion, who goes by Base. We'll go over some of those, but thoughts about the whole situation. We'll just start with that blanket question to you guys, just because there's so much to unravel here.
So this is one that it just feels so bad because this has been a community sort of fueled team for so long, and it to crumble like this. Now, we can understand the reason for the crumblings, of course, because, as I said earlier, salary is a big part of it. It's security, but for it to crumble in this way when they were such good friends, and you've seen all their tweets and that, and saying we were like family, and then it almost feels like a back, getting stabbed in the back. This is what happens when people that don't know business and don't know how it really works get put into situations where they do stupid stuff, and
yes.
You can't again, it's that case of, as long as they were all open with each other about it, in this case, everyone had been fine. Everyone would be like, okay, yeah, we can understand why Triple Trouble breaks up. But it's the way that the players went about it, which just leaves you with such a sour taste for this one.
You need a seg, Jay?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of a way to approach this without going into a rant, because I will, and let me tell you why.
This is
I'm ready.
As a person, I'm a Triple Trouble fan. I go manic for the guys. I've wanted to see them succeed for the longest time in the world. I'm not going to go on a rant today. I'm going to do my best. It's too early in the morning for me to do that. But as a journalist, as a pundit, as an expert, I have to also assess this from an independent point of view. And at the end of the day, you cannot deny that this was handled in a very, very unprofessional way. Like, this should not have been the kind of cluster that it was. Absolutely not.
It should have never been public to start with, essentially.
No.
There are certain aspects I can understand why they went public. For example, there was the whole Ronicky owing Tadpole money, for example. Like, if you've been sitting on that for a year, then okay, I understand why you want to go public with that sort of thing. But everything else really should have been sorted out in private communication. And it frustrates me because this is not the first time in the last couple of weeks we've seen this happen. Last week, TSM had a meltdown. TSM imploded.
Christ.
How many more teams are on the horizon to implode? There was a chance that maybe FC Barcelona could have imploded with Alpha's exit, and I'm not going to go into details.
People were saying like even Bluey was potentially
I'm not going to say specifics, but I will say that I have heard details behind the scenes, and it was not a pretty sight in FC Barcelona. So I'm glad that they were able to sort it out professionally, and I'm glad that it was under FC Barcelona's sort of reign, because they were the guys that could have controlled it and made sure it didn't happen that way. But for every other team that's not organized, and for every other team that you can consider an amateur team or a non-sponsored team, however you want to say it, this is going to be a problem you've got to tackle. And if there's one lesson you should learn out of this, it's to not do what happened here, because it will screw your chances. Whether or not Cassio left, Triple Trouble would have had a hard time finding another organization to take them on, because they would have looked at that and said, "Do you know what? I don't think I'm cool with that. I think I'm just gonna go find someone else." Because is it worth it to go and and pick up a team of people who might not represent the brand in the way that you want to see it, like that reflects badly on you if your players have been doing that sort of stuff in the past. And it is a hard lesson for Tadpole because he lost everything because of it. There's a chance that maybe because he put that into the public domain, that Cassia eventually bit the bullet and went off to another team. You know, there's I'm not saying that
back, you know, essentially by Ronicky and
officially, unofficially, essentially. He wasn't officially out. There was a chance that he could have come back. It was seeming like it was going to be him, Tadpole, and iGnite going to the Beyond the Summit land in place of Ronicky. Obviously, that didn't work out the way that it did.
But again, that comes down largely to salary because he's been offered this contract. It's been leaked, so I'm happy to say it, with EternalJay to replace Niels for that side. So when he's looking at this and going, right, if I sign with EternalJay, I'm in RLCX next season because they take the Triple Trouble spot.
Most likely. I will disclaim that we don't know 100% if that's how it's going to go down because there hasn't been this situation yet. That's most likely what's going to happen. That's
just how it's been reported because RLCS
that's how it's been reported.
All 8 teams, and so it goes. I can remember speaking to someone about the rules. Essentially, the next team from the promotion playoffs go through, and so in third place,
unless they change something for whatever reason.
Fourth was Mouse, if you remember, for that, and so. Yeah, they'll take that spot. So if you're looking at in Casio's shoes, he can either go join this new team or go back to the one he was just kicked out for. This new team, he's getting a salary for, and it's a fresh start.
He's like one of their first options rather than like the last option, basically.
Yeah, so I can't blame the lad for this, and hopefully for him, because you got to think as well, like EternalJay will be willing to send them out to events. Maybe they might even send them to Montreal, you know, upcoming, just to see, right, this is our brand new team, have at it, see how they do against the American player base and go from there, you know. So I can't blame Casio in this.
No, I don't think they do
down
either.
To the communication between Tadpole and Ronicky, and it goes a bit of both ways, but this isn't us to make the judgment on that aspect, really.
Yeah.
It's like call it all out and air their dirty laundry.
Yeah, because everyone saw the twit longers. We're not even going to show them on the broadcast just because it's easy to go view that stuff yourself and see the he said, she said
sort of
situation.
On Twitter, ain't it? Yeah.
Yeah, just search them on Twitter. You can find them pretty easily and go read those yourselves. What we do want to really talk about and break down is the questions. I was able to try and get with some comments from Dion Base, the Triple Trouble manager. Didn't get a video call, unfortunately, but we did get some questions answered. Appreciate the help from Bacon and Jay for coming up with a few of those. We'll go over those now and kind of break down each one question by question and see what we think about kind of the response. So the first one here, we have just asking them if they plan on attending Rocket League Summit. We kind of already knew what was going to happen. They're not going to be it, but another team is going to be announced shortly. Any teams we kind of expect to see replace them for representing Europe? Like, would it be maybe, I don't know, Dignitas or TSM with the new roster that we're having there? Any thoughts on that kind of situation?
I think my best bet would be the Complexity of Dig for that. Like you could say EternalJay as well with their recent move up, and I would just say TSM because that's not a confirmed third at the moment. You go with which teams already have the confirmed thirds, you know, and Beyond the Summit can just go to straight away. So Dig or Complexity are my two near enough first ones that should be knocked on the door, you know?
Makes a lot of sense. Now let's quickly go into the second question, which actually has more base behind it. I did not want to make that connection, but, you know, I had to say it afterwards. Does Tadpole have any prospective rosters he's trying out for? Obviously, because it's so sudden and they're still trying to come up with a situation. They don't know exactly what the future looks like for Tadpole. Hopefully he'll be able to find someone. I mean, maybe he could team up with Niels, who's no longer on EternalJay, according to the leak that we saw happen recently. We'll see what happens with that roster. We don't even know what's going to happen with iGnite either. So that's like 3 players that could potentially look pretty solid for re-qualifying for Rival Series. Sucks for them, obviously, but, you know.
Well, we had the little joke in our own Discord of essentially iGnite, Niels, and Tadpole all join forces and become the leftovers too. You know, and it'd be a beautiful.
That's sad, but also great. I mean, hopefully for him, he's able to find a team or like a roster for this next season. Doesn't completely give up. We see we don't know for sure, but we kind of see with Sathu, he wasn't in the exact same situation, but he was kind of booted off of Space Station for another player. So hopefully he's also in a situation where he'll be able to find someone. But we have our next question after that. More asking about like where the plans are for Base himself. If he's going to be trying to manage someone else or maybe just follow along with Tapple, whatever team he joins. Basically, he has a lot of stuff going on, and he appreciates all that he has been able to do for that, but doesn't know exactly what it is going to be because he didn't really expect this whole thing to happen, and kind of hard to expect that stuff based on what we saw from the messages and the twit longers between players and everything.
Well, yeah, a week ago, this was not even on the table. No one had expected it from the Triple Trouble guys. So you got to think it's literally over the span of about 3 days. These guys have just had their whole world rocked, It's crazy. So for him, where it was more him being, Tadpole's friend and coming in as a manager for that to sort of help the team out originally and lead the community that way. I reckon for this, it's going to be, Triple Trouble is all disbanded, and essentially this will be him fizzle out, go focus on university because busy times, of course, and then maybe come back after he's finished uni.
Yeah, that's like a solid approach for that kind of stuff. And obviously, when you're trying to balance uni and looking for jobs and also managing and all this stuff too, kind of a lot to deal with. We'll also talk about a little bit later the conversation that's gone on with the whole people being friends with the players too, where it might not be as approachable for a specific member of the team if they feel like you might not be the favored member of that team. We'll kind of go over that a little bit after we go through all these questions because that's an interesting topic to go over as well. Just a follow up, we wanted to kind of make it a little bit more lighthearted, see what his favorite moments from managing the team was. Obviously some people might not agree with them, but I feel like we can all agree that having Triple Trouble at Worlds, everyone cheering them, even though they went out, it was still great that they made LAN and to see so many people supporting them. I mean, Stacks, he's been bumming around in the chat a little bit today. He loves the guys and hung out with them throughout the weekend. And it's great to see how a roster that no one really expected to make it all the way there did. And they were able to have such great fan support too.
Yeah, I think this probably highlights the great tragedy of this whole thing because there's so many people that have come out and said, I'm heartbroken by the Triple Trouble thing. Again, I as a person, I'm a fan. I'm a massive fan of Triple Trouble. The only thing I'm only so far as to not having the jersey, which unfortunately I can't get anymore now because obviously the team's gone.
Well, you remember me, I was like, I'm not going to get a Triple Trouble jersey because I'm going to pick up day one when they get signed by an org. Oh, yikes.
The bottom line is still the fact that there's all those people genuinely believed in Triple Trouble, and everybody in Europe believed in Triple Trouble. And this sort of like memory and this highlight for Base does highlight, again, the true tragedy, I think, of Triple Trouble.
Yeah, it's very sad to see things go down this way. And as you guys kind of mentioned it before, it is serving as a reminder for a lot of these other up-and-coming teams and players that that's not really the best way to handle these sort of situations. And hopefully for a lot of other players, they'll be able to recognize that kind of thing. Speaking of the whole org situation that has been an issue with Triple Trouble and a lot of other unsigned teams like we see with the Peeps and Birds and Bees, we do see him kind of answering and giving us a little bit of insight into how things work with the orgs and them kind of seeing how they might not want to join the scene right now. A lot of uncertainty with a lot of tier 1 orgs wanting to join, but them not knowing exactly what the investment is worth it right now because they can't quantify what they really get out of Rocket League currently because of how they have the relegation system. There isn't franchises, even though there are esports items, that's maybe not enough to draw the big boys in quite yet.
Well, when you look at this as well, you got to think, because there's going to be so many comparisons made to Fortnite. Let's just put that on the table purely because Epic owning both now, essentially, alongside Tencent, it's just there. So for these tier 1 esports orgs, they're all looking at it going, are they going to pull a Fortnite, put all this money into which we want to get involved with that?
True.
But there has not been any official announcement. The current structure is not I'd say, worthy enough unless you're a top 2 team near enough from both regions, because they're the more secure sides anyway, to make it through to say LAN and get the full worth out of it. So for every other org, like every other tier 1 org, they're just going to play the weighing game. As players in that means then that you're going to have to go for the tier 2 org and probably take about half the salary at best than what your rivals essentially in the league. And you can be beating them out, because with both regions, it can come down to the day, and you're taking home each month half the money they are. And a lot of players, that doesn't sit well with them naturally, of course, does it?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens with a lot of these orgs too, and hopefully that more of them join. Did you have a point you wanted to say, Jay?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of been like that for a while, really, with the whole uncertainty about how far Rocket League can go. And I kind of want to level a bit of criticism to Psyonix on that particular regard, because they have created an environment which naturally limits the way the Rocket League can grow. If they opened up the floodgates, while I don't think it would be a particularly smart idea in the short term, in the long run, if you held a little bit of control out to try and keep quality control above the scene, then it probably would be much more beneficial for the scene as a whole, because that would allow infinite possibilities for other tournament organizers to come in. As it stands right now, DreamHack have to get approval for the Pro Circuit. Beyond the Summit need to get approval for their Summit event. Northern Arena need to get approval for Gnarly. E-League need to get approval for E-League Cup, because it's all above their $5,000 limit, which is a hard cap that's put in by the community guidelines.
In a lot of sense as well, because when you look at, say, the Dream Cup and the World Gaming Network stuff as well, Sonic seems want to see everything sort of linked. Like the Dream Cups and that going on in Spain and Portugal led to DreamHack Valencia. And then when you look at the World Gaming Network, yes, it's a $20,000 tournament, which is sort of like what I think minors should be at a level right now within Rocket League, after all this time. And then that leads to a spot into Montreal. Yeah, that's cool, but like, why does everything have to be linked in very much Overwatch? Why does everything have to have Big Brother's stare on it? It's a little bit odd in that sense. Why not just raise that $5,000 floodgate, which I'm hoping will happen, of course, with the acquisition, and just put it up to a respectful, let's say, 20 grand, and just see what other orgs, like just, your ESL then suddenly goes, oh, we don't need permission now anymore. Right, we're just going to run $10,000 tournaments on every other month because we can now make money from it with our sponsors and that,
Yeah, it'd be great to see more of a hands-off approach, and that might just help give some of these orgs the necessary push to get into it. I mean, like, I'd love to see the whole, I don't know if it's Dota or CS or maybe both, that do the situation where they just have a lot of majors and that leads up to the final event themselves. Like, that's a great way to do things. I'd love to see that too, because then we see more tournament organizers, more orgs trying to get into it, because there's more international events going on instead of just how we have it for league play now. But that's a discussion for another time. We did ask if he wanted to clarify anything in regards to this whole situation, because that's the next question we had on the docket for him. And he kind of said what we said before. Massive, he said he did arguments too much to say. And if anyone has questions, to kind of reach out to him on Twitter or any of the other people if they're close enough, because it's hard to know both sides if you're only really seeing the public side of what people are willing to release to a lot of this information. So it's hard to exactly break down stuff. And he's not really wanting to go through the effort of kind of debunking some of what has been said by Ronicky about the whole situation, which is understandable. You just had one of your players leave while you're trying to find another player to join the player that left. And then that player that you were trying to replace leaves as well for a better situation. Then it all just falls into shambles. It's probably better to focus on other things than just trying to clarify all that information.
I mean, at the same time, though, Base has also gone on record to say that he said that he thinks that Ronicky had lied in his statement in certain particular points. He said that on one of his Twitter pages. He said he wrote up a whole tweet longer, but he doesn't want to post it for the sake of the drama. And I have to say, like, if he's posting lies about you and you can prove that they are lies, then you really need to come out and say that kind of stuff, because that could damage you in the long run, right? If people look at this situation and they see Roniki's perspective and they side with him, then that's going to ruin your career. That's going to ruin Tadpole's career. Like, you need to make sure that all of this is, clarified beyond belief. You need to make sure that people know who the facts of this whole situation, because it shouldn't have spilled out into the public domain, but it has now. Therefore, you have to cover your own back, basically. And the same thing applies for Tadpole. The same thing applies for Roniki. You need to make sure that the truth is out there. If people are lying about you, then that's going to ruin things. That's going to really, really hurt your career.
The only thing I can say to that is it will only hurt your career if you're looking for an org and you're a player still. In this situation, a lot of the other players know how this is handled. And
true,
like the big example there was after Roniki's statement that a lot of players like I spoke to try and get the be all and end all, doing the reporting that on it, and that they near enough the across the board response was, yeah, we're not surprised he tried to play the victim on this and that. That's his sort of personality, which of course I don't know the dude personally. It was just that case of that seems like players knew what he was a bit like beforehand, and that it's weird to deal with that sort of scenario,
Yeah, it is a very strange scenario to kind of deal with. And speaking of the scenario itself, kind of asked, and this was a question one of you guys actually presented me with, is what was the state of the team prior to Roniki's departure? And it kind of just goes to show with his response how normal things seemed before and how blindsided they really were with everything that was happening. Obviously, things weren't going to be going perfectly well with Casio because they were trying to replace him and they were looking for other players, and that's hard to recover once you say, oh, I'm just going to look for some other player, because then that player knows, well, I'm not really their first option, and even though we qualified for LAN, they want to replace me, so I got to look for other things. And if something, and the salary, and like we saw him going to Veloce with the whole leak that happened, it's just irrecoverable after that point, and it just spiraled out of control, I feel like, once they started looking for a different player.
And essentially, it should have never been the case in the first place for them to look for a new player. It was just because all the roster swaps elsewhere, naturally that jumps up, so teams suddenly go, okay, if there are now players on the market, for example, the high Ignite, get dropped from TSM. I don't think we've still got an official statement from TSM about
No, we
that.
haven't. I think he still has in his bio that he is a member of TSM.
Which is a weird one there, but it was still that sort of case of if he's free on the market, then yeah, why not give him a trial out? Ignite was just always in the case of on that team it weren't working anymore, and that was the team as a whole. He's just taken, enough end of the stick having to get kicked. And so if he could be that insane player again, that could strengthen them, because they could do with a very strong attacker, and it just, backfired, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the way things go sometimes. And that's brings up the whole conversation about how we don't have rosters with more control. I'm not rosters, with teams having more control, orgs having more control. If there was an org, was a question that I asked, would that have kind of prevented the split from happening? And obviously contracts make those kind of things from happening a lot harder, because you have to go with the contract that you sign. Maybe that's something that needs to be introduced for some of these teams, is having contracts they sign with each other. Maybe, I don't know.
The thing there, that could actually be a cool little idea, trying to make the players themselves sign together. That would seem a little bit more like if Silex was trying to take control, and we're all saying they need to take a more hands-off approach to that, so maybe not. But the case was, there was the rumors going around with Barcelona, the players wanting to kick one member of their team, and Barcelona and they were looking for other people to replace.
We're trying other people out,
yeah, the org actually stepped on in and went, no, you lot, stay together. We've got you under contract. We're not breaking someone's contract up and just letting them go. That's dumb. And then, of course, when the alpha came there, that would largely be because TSM would pay the breakout clause. So that's more understandable. They don't want to just spend the money themselves and not get anything back.
Yeah, it's just hard situation to deal with. And we did ask for the final question towards base if he wanted to say anything to the players that he's worked with since becoming a part of Triple Trouble. So he has some words here. I'll read them off word for word for those who might just be listening in the background. He wanted to thank Speed for being a real one and faced one of the hardest decisions to make, and Speed was able to make that. Proud of what he achieved, and would have loved to have him back on the roster, but it happens. And that he'll succeed in Rocket League no matter what team he is on, and to remember him when he wins Worlds. Hopefully that happens with the roster he's on now. Cassio, he said it's unfortunate how things turned out. Doesn't blame them for the decision given the circumstances, and kind of wishes it hadn't happened how it did. Obviously, that's how it is for most people. And then Tadpole, obviously, since he's been with him the longest out of all of them, doesn't really need to say too much of him. And hopefully he'll be looking better in the future, but he'll support it. And, he's always supported him as well. So any thoughts about these, the final thoughts that Base has had for these players?
Heartwarming. It's
Yeah.
wholesome. I like it.
I mean, it makes sense, obviously. These guys have been pretty real so far. Speed's been all right. Even though there was some drama about it initially when he particularly left the roster. It seemed like there was no bad blood behind the scenes. It seems like everybody kind of blew that whole situation out of the water. So to finally see some official closure on that particular regard is all right. Cassio, obviously, as you're mentioning, unfortunate how that whole thing went, but there's not much you can do about the situation. If you're going to praise Speed for making a very hard decision, you've got to do the same thing for Cassio, given those circumstances. And, they're still mates. Tadpole and Base are still mates, so obviously they'll be looking out for each other. They'll have each other's backs. I do love the joke about the idea of starting a career about dealing with unfortunate situations and just winging it. So, again, it's much like what Tadpole's sister said during Worlds. It's very wonderfully British, that whole thing. I love it.
Yeah. And the only thing I think on a leading point here is the connection we all have with Triple Trouble just is something for bubble teams to look at in their growth. It's the same what really happened with Savage. You build a community around your bubble scene team, so it's not just a team that you're picking up as an org. It's this whole community, because that then sells more. You've got a passionate fan base. I was about to say a fashionate pan base, which tongue twister there. But yeah, you build up that whole thing because then that's more appealing. And definitely, it felt like Triple Trouble would have got picked up. They could have easily got picked up by a tier 2 esports org. They, of course, valued themselves to be top tier because they go to LAN. They're a top 4 team. They're playing at the same level as everyone else. And it just did not work out that way. It's waiting around too long. And so if you're one of these other bubble scene teams, definitely to get a sponsor in RS, that is the easiest way to go. And then you try and do what they did essentially with Red Reserve, is then get that salary. You get paid a certain amount for RS, and then that bumps up for RLCS. That is the model which all these bubble scene teams should be looking at. And basically learn from this. Don't go calling each other out on Twitter. Keep it professional. If there is going to be a breakup, actually try and get it to journalist outlooks. That's one thing I do love about, say, CS, where near enough, if there's going to be a roster swap or if there's bad blood within the team, they'll go to journalists first and go, this is going to happen. We'll give you the information up front, just don't post it until a certain day when we've got everything cleared up, and sort of try and handle it more professionally, because that's what the Rocket League scene needs now. If it's going to grow any further, especially with orgs coming in, it's got to get more professional. It cannot be 16-year-old kids throwing beef at each other, because that's not how it works.
I mean,
so I do want to point out something real quick. Stacks made a really great joke in the chat. Red Reserve and getting paid, you got to kind of pick one with those, unfortunately.
Same with Epsilon. We've got that problem, me, you, trust us.
Yeah.
There's so many. Sebadam, I think, had been on so many teams and not been paid for one of them because, read your contracts as well.
It was Ares first, and then it was Epsilon. And now... he's on Nordavin, I think. So he's okay now.
Nordavin is the good ones, yeah.
Yeah, not a very good time for Sebadam.
But yeah, it still is important, the points that you're making there. And did you have something you wanted to say before I interrupted you, Jay?
No, not really. Actually, I kind of forgot the point now, so it's all good.
Gotcha. Well, any final points about the whole situation before we close up the show? The Triple Trouble stuff that we saw happen with the disbanding, the kind of timeline that we saw with Cassio, them looking for a different third, them finding iIgnite, and then Roniki also trying other people. And then it kind of exploding from there, leading to the full disbandment of Triple Trouble and them losing their spot, and potentially Veloce getting that spot as well.
Like for one, this is a massive part of like RLCS and Rocket League history, of course. That it's cool in its own regard. And then that next season, because most likely Mouse Sports are breaking up, a lot moving over the bricks. He'd be dumb not to see that the whole way through. You know, that then leaves Mouse Sports with no team unless Alex moves back. But that seems like it's all, you know, a bridge that's been burnt behind. So we've only got two RLRS remaining teams, ARG, who have picked up their new third. They've dropped GCR, bringing in Monkey Moon, and Method, who is a bit of a house of cards still, me and Jay have been talking about, but they've got that third
like
spot.
That.
Yeah, they've continuously been like that for season upon seasons, and that's largely why they're still in RLRS, but they've got that spot to next season, so 6 playing seasons is absolutely nuts. 5 for NA and 6 for EU. We just had to one up you guys a little bit there in the worst way possible.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But it's going to be a crazy season coming up. And when you've got that sort of case, like when I look at Tadpole, for example, if there's more play-in spots open, there's more chance for him to get back into the fold, which is at least the silver lining to it all, you know?
Yeah, it's a great silver lining, and hopefully he will be able to find that spot back. I mean, even talked about Classics. If he isn't able to get on a team for the rival series, he'll still pretty easily be able to get back in there too. But there is always
someone will pick him up as a sub on the teams if he doesn't make our ref. They would be dumb not to have a player of that caliber just to be able to call in whenever you need, you know?
Yeah, I think the only real thing I've got to say about it is that like it could have been handled differently, and we could be down a very different path. But as it stands, there are lessons to be learned, and I just hope that going forward, people will learn them.
Yeah, hopefully everyone is gonna take all that they can from this entire experience, learn as much as possible, jot it down, keep it in the back of their notebook, and like look at it every night. It's like, okay, I need to not do that when I'm trying to be a professional player on any of these teams, especially as the scene continues to grow. It's probably going to get more and more chaotic, where we'll see more stuff until it maybe gets to a chance where there would be franchising, if it ever gets to that point. Because that's the only time where stuff like this would not happen, is if it was franchised, because contracts and the orgs having that much power kind of
it could still happen, but the spots,
it could still happen.
That's it.
Yes, but it also wouldn't be as public, I feel, as well. It might be just one player dealing with this whole situation than like the entire team.
I think that there's also a thing there, like if again, like we were saying with the whole Barcelona thing, of orgs need to step in a lot more. They're very much just throw money at these players and let them do their thing. They need to start getting a little bit more involved with Rocket League and managing these players, because unlike your Dota, unlike your CS, these are younger players. So of course they're not matured enough in the scene and know how things work business-wise for them. It can only hurt their image as esports orgs.
I mean, we almost saw it happen with Flakes almost leaving Complexity, which would have been the dumbest mistake of his life. We almost saw happen there. But obviously, the org stepped in, and Snasky, who joined them recently as a coach, was able to kind of calm down that whole situation. So hopefully, they'll be looking pretty good going into this next season. But great to have you guys on the show. Any shout-outs you want to do? Obviously, you are the host of the RL Aftershock show that goes on every week. Where can they find you guys on your social media and that show as well, if they want to tune into even more discussion about this kind of stuff?
Am I going to do my little bit, Bacon?
You've got it nailed down. Go.
So it's at RL Aftershock on Twitter. Obviously, our own personal Twitters are in the little things below, but at RL Aftershock on Twitter. Tomorrow we will be live from 7 o'clock British summertime, which is 8 o'clock Central European summertime, and 2 p.m. Eastern?
Around there, yeah.
2 p.m.
Yeah, something around those lines. And of course, it will be live on twitch.tv/RL Aftershock, which is the standard Twitch channel which we use. You can follow that. Or if you don't want to watch the live version, then it's available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, TuneIn, and about like many different
Anchor,
Anchor.fm/RL Aftershock will give you the full listing of everything. So that's my self promo bit. That's my self promo bit plugged and done. We will be going into much more depth with the Triple Trouble thing tomorrow. Way too much depth. Let's put it this way: I didn't rant tonight because I'm saving it for tomorrow. So there you go.
Yeah, there's so much stuff to go over for all of that, but thank you guys for joining the show. I'm just going to do a little solo throw out for the rest of it, but I really appreciate you guys being on, giving your insight into the whole region and the mess that's been happening. Definitely check that out if you guys want to find out the rants that will be happening about the whole Triple Trouble situation tomorrow, and you can obviously listen to it on all those platforms as well. If you want to check out this and you might not have been able to see the rest of the episode or the show, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/UGC. I think eventually are going to be on Spotify and all that fun stuff as well. Stay tuned for that. Obviously on Twitter, follow me at Vaudible. I'll be posting a lot of this kind of stuff. I'll be tweeting out when RL Aftershock goes live. So I'll make sure to keep that on myself so that for those of you that are from North America and don't know exactly what time it's going to be on, you'll know then. And then obviously we're going to have a lot more of these shows going on every single week, 10 p.m. Eastern. I think it's EDT, 9 p.m. Central as well. Don't know exact. I think it's like 3 a.m. your guys' time or something like that.
Yeah, yes. It's not 3 a.m. BST for us.
Yeah, 3 a.m. BST. So definitely tune into that for the VODs. That'll be happening on YouTube when you don't want to stay up that late. These guys are champions, as I like to say them for being on the show. But thank you all for tuning in. That's going to be all for us, all three of us on the show for episode 3 of Boost Pickup. Hope you all enjoyed and hope you catch the next one and talk to you all later.